In this video, you're going to see me work through mental blocks in order to get started with oil painting. Sometimes the projects or tasks we set out for ourselves can feel too overwhelming, and quite often the thing we want to do never gets done. It constantly sits on the back burner, waiting for that moment when we get around to it. For a while now, the last few years really, I have been meaning to get back into painting, and not with gouache or acrylic, but oil painting. Why? Well, I really like the way oil paintings look. It has a certain finish to it that's really appealing to me. Also, the blending qualities and flexibility, the slower drying time than acrylic, which I found really hard to work with, although that can be an advantage sometimes. A quick disclaimer though, I have oil painted in the past many years ago. I'm talking at least a decade, and it was in a group setting where we had teachers or a teacher to oversee the class and help out when needed, and set up and clean up was simplified because there was a dedicated permanent station where you could clean your brushes and palette before you left, so it just made it really easy. It's been so long that honestly I don't remember any of the technicalities of it. I've forgotten everything, which is apparent by how hard I found it to start this time around, and also this monstrosity. So what were my roadblocks? A few things put me off starting, mainly setting up and cleaning up. I'm the type of person that needs to prepare things so they are ready for me to walk into and start without thinking, removing the barrier to entry, that type of thing. The barrier to entry for oil painting seemed pretty high, and that's why I put it off for at least the past 3 years. It felt too complicated. The different materials I would need, especially solvent, that put me off because I didn't know how to deal with it when all I'm used to using is water to wash stuff out with. I didn't know how I was going to treat my palette or brushes, and I wasn't really sure of how much stuff I would really need to get started. I hate starting something and then realizing that there is something I need but I don't have, so I've got to stop. It's a surefire way to dampen my enthusiasm and courage to keep going. I do have some materials left over from decades ago, and I also inherited some oil paint from my mother. I have no idea how old that stuff is, but mostly it's Winsor & Newton paint, which should be fairly good quality, so I hope that holds up over time. I think I got lucky with that. Because I'm on a limited / no budget, I got my solvent and linseed oil from the hardware store. I know it's not artist quality, but it's what's available to me, so that's what I'll use. I made a couple of jars for the solvent with wire mesh inside to keep the brushes clean when I need to clean them off. I got this stuff at least a year ago. That's how slow I move. But at least I have everything now, I think. I can no longer use that as an excuse. So what's left to do? I've been mulling over that for the past year. I swear time moves differently for me. Really. All that's left is to choose something to paint and lay it out and set it up. That's it. That's all I really need. Black and white paint, a palette knife, something to paint on. In my case, I'm using sketchbook paper. Solvent. I have the linseed oil, but I didn't end up using it. I found an old sticky jar of medium. I don't know what it does. I don't know what it is, but it helped for the third painting. And I need a subject to paint. So once I had all of that, this happened. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I've got my sketch down on an acrylic base, but I think the reason why I'm feeling overwhelmed is because I've got no experience in starting a painting study like this with oil paints, and I'm a little bit scared because I feel like, well, what could go wrong? This is it. I don't know why I'm hesitating and feeling like, at the moment I feel like I can't do it. Oil paints feel really scary right now. Well, what do I need to do to prepare them? If I break it down, all I'm using is black and white, which I've got. I do have a choice between water soluble and normal oil. I think I might try the water soluble first, maybe. Again, I'm hesitating. What is so scary? Well, I don't have a palette out either. I don't have an oil palette. Is that going to be the hill that I die on because I didn't prepare a palette? I get overwhelmed so easily. All right, well, let's think about it. Calm down, clearly, because I'm panicking right now. I really am panicking. I don't know why. It feels like there's a barrier. I'm trying to work through this barrier, but this isn't the barrier I'm working through. The barrier is inside. It's inside my head. And it's as good as a physical barrier. I've got my plan set out on the paper. I did that before because of this. I need to not think too far ahead. Small steps. Get a palette. First of all, I need to get a palette to mix paint on, and then I can go from there. Do you do this to yourself as well? I don't really like showing how hard things are sometimes for me, but if it helps someone else get over blocks like these, I think it's worth showing. Sometimes it's the mental blocks that may as well be physical brick walls. These are the hardest to get through, and on this day, I broke through them. I'm proud of myself for doing that, and I don't care how badly the painting turned out, and as you can see, it was pretty bad. My first hurdle was getting started, and on that, I succeeded, so yay! So my experience with this whole thing is the first few times are most likely going to be a struggle. There is no point in expecting a masterpiece at my current level with something new and comparing it to what I do with pencil or charcoal, which I have more practice in. I expect to throw the first few paintings out. How many I'm going to throw out, I have no idea, but I tried not to think about it. So because I felt like this was all brand new again and I had no idea of what I'm doing, I decided to go back to basics and get a feel for things. What I wanted to get from this experience is how to mix different values using just black and white to start with. How do I make brush strokes? How do I blend the paint? How do I create hard and soft edges? How do I create different looking surfaces? That's it. I don't care about how the end results look, and just as well because they really were awful. But I mean, I made mistakes and I learned from them. That's my success for these first few paintings. So what did I learn? Well, simplify the subject. I originally had the cloth draped in a way that was just way too complicated to begin figuring out the shapes and values with, let alone trying to paint it. So I flattened that out for the background. I used simple shaped objects to start with, a box and two spheres with different surfaces and different ways they reflected the light. It might not be an exciting subject, but they are serving a purpose, and that purpose is to keep it simple. I also learned that putting down an acrylic layer to serve as gesso is unnecessary right now, and it only made it harder for myself. For some reason, I got it in my little head that I must work on a gessoed surface, and I thought I could do that with a tinted acrylic paint. Crazy, I know. I don't know how my little brain makes these connections, but I had to work on that surface, and I thought that I could do that with the tinted acrylic paint, not just white. But you can see how horrible it made the paint, and especially with the second one, I accidentally made it too dark, and it's a shame because I actually painted that on several pages thinking I was preparing ahead of time. But I guess I can use that for something else, but I definitely won't be painting oil over them, or oil paint over them. This is why. A couple of things were happening here, I think. First off, I was using the oldest paint I have, which is at least a decade old, and then only using solvent to thin it down at first. Then using it just as it was, like brushing stiff butter from the fridge. I was putting it on way too thick, and I didn't know how to blend it like that. It was really, really hard. I was so discouraged especially by that second painting, that I went and looked up a video on oil painting tips, which I'll put a link in the description below. And what stuck out to me was it's supposed to have a consistency like cream, not stiff butter that's been kept in the fridge for the last 2 years. So I was going to open up this huge bottle of linseed oil and give it a go when I found this little bottle of medium. I don't know where it came from. I don't know. It just appeared. sometimes the things that we need just appear in front of us, and that's what happened. I'm not sure what it is, but I didn't have anything to lose, so I used it with my third attempt. Whatever it is, it worked. The paint was much easier to brush on, and I changed my brushes as well to something a bit nicer that had better form bristles on them. I don't know, it's hard to describe. I guess newer brushes. And as you can see, the third painting went much better without that acrylic background and using a medium. Also, one of the tips was to use a solvent oil mix as medium, so I'm going to try making that up in the future with my hardware supplies once I find something to put it in. So on the third painting, I did learn how to blend my paint. I learned how to do hard and soft edges, all the things basically that I set out for myself to learn, basically to experience on a painting, and I did that. So that's where I'm up to now. I have 3 paintings done. I'll do some more next week. My bare minimum is to do 1 a week, but if I do more than that, then that's fantastic. I feel I have made it past the first barrier. That's going to make it easier and easier to go back to. Now I can build a history of being able to start an oil painting and concentrate on building skill. So what's next? I can't learn everything at once or in one painting. It's a gradual process for me, so my intention is to slowly work up to more complicated subjects and refining techniques, identifying what needs to be worked on and finding solutions to problems and practicing them until I'm ready for the next step. If I had a teacher, things might move a bit faster. Having a seasoned set of eyes to point things out that I probably can't see yet would expedite the learning process, but I'm doing this alone, so I have to develop my own eyes to spot these things. And sometimes it can take a while before you actually see your mistakes. I can't rush it. I just have to trust that I will see the mistakes when I'm ready to learn how to fix them. So that's it. That's my experience. I hope my journey inspires you to take your own with whatever it is that you want to learn. And if I can do it, I think I know people say this seriously, but if I can do it, really anyone can, because I am the worst in believing in myself. Learning to paint and draw is slowly changing my mind, and I want that for other people that struggle as well. So with that said, I hope you come back to see the next video. Also, subscribe if you find any of this helps you to get going with your own projects. I haven't decided what I'm going to paint next, so we'll have to wait and see for that one. But don't give up on yourself. Instead, let's just get on with it.